Good evening, shadow dwellers and creators, and welcome to the House of Shadows and Ink and my guest for today, Theresa Derwin. Hi, Theresa.
Hiya.
Thanks for being here. And what an awesome week.
I know.
Gosh. So, God's Vengeance is finally here. It's been years in the making, and please share that with our viewers, but also I mean, how it started. I mean, I think it was, I basically accepted this book 5 or 6 years, I think, before it was even written. That's
Yeah.
how much I just loved the idea of this book, the premise. So, yes, all yours. Tell us all about it.
Okay. So Joe used to run before these flash competitions. He started regular anthology competitions, and he basically said, dark, horror themed, but can be science fiction, up to 5,000 words. Send your stories in. Now, the first three won, and I was like, well, fair enough. Until Joe actually reached out and said, we think we'd like it to be a novella. He and the judges at the time had discussed it and thought that the short story had legs. So then I had a meeting with them all on Zoom, and we batted about story ideas and what might work, what might not work. Now, about the same time, I was starting to get a little bit more poorly than I had been. So I was laying to bed my anthology work that I used to do. And I think I'd got up to about 15,000 words in this book when the pandemic hit. And throughout this joke, I'd email Joe and say, Joe, it's going to be another 6 months. I'm struggling. He'd be like, no, it's fine. Send it whenever. The pandemic hit. And of course, that changed the whole thing. Because if you don't know much about the book, it starts with a sort of pandemic, and it's about a created disease, a mad scientist, the end of the world, baby farms. It's all in there. And it was actually inspired by the political worldview
Mhm.
from about 2012, because I could see the way the world was going and the way governments were trying to control people's right to choose how they use their body, what they do with their body, about their right to choose medication, about their right to choose to have children, all of this. And as a woman who had fought for a hysterectomy for years following awful, awful pain and a crippling lifestyle and medication that didn't work, I just thought this is important to me.
Mhm.
So the only thing that changed though was when the pandemic hit, everybody became a little bit miserable. We reached into the arts, but we wanted more fun things. And I was like, yeah, Teresa, you cannot kill the bleep, bleep, bleep. I won't tell you what the bleep, bleep, bleep was, but we'd had some plans, and I was like, no, you can't do that. So it kind of reached the point where I was, you got to insert a few jokes here,
That's true.
insert a bit of found family, a bit of laughter, some light-heartedness within the book. So the whole ending changed because the ending was not going to be happy. Because I write dark stuff, I always have. But ironically, a lot of it sort of changed how I write and what I write now, because I decided that I was kind of fed up of pure dark and I wanted to add fun and pulp and monsters and romance to my writing. So this book, as it stands, I can't talk about the ending. What I will say is people have found it to be a satisfactory ending for the book. Other people are like, wow, this would make a great film, and are you doing another one? I'll be honest, the answer is no, because it took me 10 years because of the emotional trauma within this book. So have fun reading. So, yeah,
Mhm.
it, it's an important book because 10% of the proceeds are going to Not a Phase in the UK, which is trans support charity.
Okay, good.
And at the minute, please reach out if you can help. There is no way from the UK for me to put money direct into Planned Parenthood because you have to be in an American address. So if you would be the intermediate, or if they've got an Amazon list that you can send things to that particular organisation or families in that situation, reach out to Joe or myself and give me some advice about how I can do that.
Well,
Now,
we'll do some research ourselves, and if we did find a link, it'll be in the description now, and people can just click
brilliant,
through there.
thank you.
Cool.
Now, interestingly, how did I write the book? It started on a laptop. However, if you can look at my fingers, they don't look too bad today, but they're all very curled because of the arthritis and the fibro. So I've actually finished this entire book, the promo, the copy edits, the interviews. I'm doing everything on a phone. And it's amazing when you think that 10, 15 years ago, that might not have been possible. I mean, people are making films on phones now. Cinema-worthy films. So I've managed to write the entire thing on it. However, I've got a techie friend, and the next step is a notebook about 10 inches that will have the right technology. And I'm going to get some dictation software and things like that to help me, because it has been a challenge doing it on the phone. And a word to the writers out there: you may think you're prepared for a professional publisher, and I'm not on about the criteria for getting in. I'm on about the blooming work that you have to do. I mean, we've done so much together, and the thing about Joe and his team is they have been interactive with me. I was approached about the cover concept. I did some research about what sells in YA, because ultimately that's why we're here. I looked at the theme of the book, and Joe found Zach Winsick or Winchick, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. And we worked on this cover together. And when it came to the start of the actual, here's the book, Joe sent me the first editorial notes. And that led to some epistolary work within the book, such as the science articles at the beginning, because my friends helped me with that. I've got a microbiologist friend who dived in and set me right on that. And from that, I did another draft. I'm from Birmingham, UK, and Brummy Brothers, they're a thing. All the lads in Birmingham, a lot of bruvs, it's that. So I created a podcast called The Brummy Brothers, who talk about what's happening out there and what they suspect. Interestingly, had to research how the kids speak, because it's a YA book. I'm a 54-year-old woman. That was tricky. So from there, anyway, the primary edits came in from the editor at the time, and we must have had 4 or 5 back and forths. Then, of course, you've got the copy edits, the line edits. From then on, I was reached out by Jack, who is fantastic, and she is the designer. Now, I've already spoke to her because I'm sending her a little goodie bag in the post, because
that's cool.
She went above and beyond, because in the midst of doing the design, I had an injury and ended up in hospital, came out, and I had to write and tell her what happened. And she basically, we did the whole correction process through email. She would send me page note, because it affects my cognitive issues when I'm ill. And she went above and beyond. And then from there, she'd be like, well, I've had these ideas about what funky things to do with fonts and all the rest of it. So I was involved in the actual design process for the interior. And then there's that moment, I'll talk about PR in a bit, but there's that moment when they send you that document and it's the final document. And I was like, oh my God, it's coming out, you're working. Then suddenly it's like, what? It's a bit of a shock to the system when you see this. Now, for the writers out there, I'm going to talk about PR. Again, it's amazing, but it's worthwhile, but it's hard. I'm lucky again, Joe and his team, they do all the graphics, they do whatever video you see of me, you will see images or words pop up to do with what I'm talking about. But then you've got the interviews, and they've got a great sort of network out there. Plus, I've got my own network. I asked for an advert. It was produced. Charlene's in charge of that. And that's come out in the magazine Phantasmagoria, which has got quite a wide following. And it's a great industry horror magazine. And you have to remember that if you record all of your interviews or type up all of your interviews and say the same thing for every answer, it's going to get boring for readers. So you have to think, what can I do differently here, or how can I phrase this differently here? It's like those politicians that you see on TV and they say the same thing all the time. And you have to remember, people aren't going to be on board. The other thing that I realised very early on, people don't buy the book as much as they buy you.
Oh, that's true.
And that writers who I disagree with politically or from a personal stance, or who feel very mercenary and just mercenary, and it's not about the art, I'm less invested in those guys. So for all my faults, I've been me. There's a particular video that will come out soon, which is my prompt to buy my book, lying in my bed. And that's all I'm going to tell you from this point. Charlene's got that video, and it's very silly because I'm a silly person at heart. And I just wanted to inject a bit of humour into it. So it's been a long process, but 2 days, and can't believe it's here.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's excellent. So yes, I mean that's where that story began. But where did the real journey of writing and creativity and your passion for this, I mean, just reading, begin? Like from a young age? When did you know this is the path I want to take?
Interestingly, it was at age 9. I have no clue what the kiva is, but it's a British word that the teachers use for this kind of little library circle that just had seats, like come in the auditorium, that we were allowed to use during lunch breaks. And I would go with my friend Joanne, and we would scribble words. And I remember handing in, they were trying to teach us poetry. And I handed in one called Lord Windsor. No relation to the royalties. It was just a name that popped in my head. And it ended with decapitation. And that was at age 9. And the teachers were like, okay, this, it's a good piece of work. However, it's a little bit morbid. And I was like, well, Dad lets me watch all the Hammer films. And my brother-in-law, God rest him, at age 12 or 13, introduced me to The Evil Dead. I was a kid of the video nasties era. And the minute he met my sister, I think I was 11 when he met my sister, he was introducing me to them all. And my sister was like, oh, behind the pillow. And I was like, So between the family influences, I started scribbling more words. Didn't do anything with it until I reached about 16. because fanzines were the thing back there. And I used to write little reviews or pieces for fanzines. Critical Wave was a well-known one in the UK. And I'd write fan fiction for the class at school. So in the midst of math class or RE class, my fan fiction was making its way round the group, and people on route, pass it on. And I'd be writing X-Files fanfic, Star Trek Next Generation. I'd be writing horror reviews, fantasy reviews. I was doing it all as a kid. It was only when I started going to these parties that some friends from the Birmingham Science Fiction Group used to organise. And there was a guy there who used to chat to me. He was older than me. I was 16, 17. Joel Lane. Yes, the Joel Lane, British Fantasy Award, phenomenal writer, God rest his soul. There was Graham Joyce. There were all these people there at this party, hanging around with us regular folk. And I'd be like, I want to do this. So I just kept chipping away. I wrote a terrible first draft novel, bottom drawer thing, that will probably remain in the bottom drawer for eternity. And I started sending it out at 26. That was in the days where you had to buy the physical book of the writer's guide, and it would have all the agents.
I remember that one.
And all the rest of it. But then, unfortunately, one had to get a day job. So I finished my degree when I was in my 20s, went off and started getting jobs. Now, I don't have a day job now, not because I'm a rich author, but because of my health. But apologies to every company I've ever worked for. I used your printers, your computers. I used it all and I was printing it off. And in fact, that first terrible novel starred half of the people who worked at the call centre I worked at the time. And it was actually when I got ill. In 38, when I got very ill, had to go off and have surgery, went back, had to go off and have more surgery, that I would become more disillusioned with the real job. It was very, again, political, but in a bad way. It was about resources. People were just chips on a board. And I was hating it. And I knew that I wasn't well enough to go back to work. So I started submitting stories. And ironically, it's Jasper Bark, who I went and had a curry with after we did a silly zombie film one day with Dave Moody and a couple of others, Wayne Simmons. And I said to him, I've seen this submission call on the David Moody fan group, and I'm thinking of having a go. And he'd read my story that was on my review blog about a kid called Mikey and a zombie apocalypse in a normal environment. And he said, that's really good. I think you can do something and you can write. You should do it. So if you want to blame anybody for my illustrious career, it's Jasper Bark. As he said in my collection Wolf at the Door, he's the Dr. Frankenstein to my creature because his work influenced me. Way of the Barefoot Zombie is...
Oh, that's good. I have a signed copy right over here.
And I know, me too. And one day I would love to do a script of that, if ever Jasper said yes. Although Jasper could write it himself, to be fair, because I think it's become more current, what it does now, that book. So basically, I followed Jasper's advice. I started throwing out stories, and to my surprise, after a letter from the group who said, or the editor who said, it needs a lot of work, but if you're willing to write this again and send it back within a week, if it's good enough, we'll have it. So I did that. And I'd be sitting up early hours, if I was in pain or whatever, using it as a distraction. I wrote a lot about my health in that time as well, and about writing with disabilities, but also zombies. Oh, it was so many zombies to start with. And I used a lot of the films that I'd watched as a kid, the Pulp, the Universal horror, the Hammer horror, the 1980s pulpy horrors. And I sent those out and they did well. I ended up running a small press, but when my health couldn't cope with it, Lichen Valley Press bought that out. And then this is when this story came about, and I thought, you know what, you've never written anything longer but a really bad book. Try again, and I did. And I'm back to writing stories again, as and when I can. Submissions, unfortunately, I miss the deadlines because I'm not able to write them to deadline anymore. But I'm having fun going back to basics. And my next book is actually going to be a shifter woman who hits menopause and gets claws. At the point before she hits menopause, she's a normal midlife woman, peed off with life, has a sudden burning up, and suddenly she's a cat. And she has to go back to school in Vegas to a shifter academy, which is hidden under Excalibur. And it features the Rat Pack, who were actually rat shifters who were still alive and running the casinos and the mob. And it's ridiculous, and I'm having fun with it.
Are you tired of going to bed at a reasonable hour? Sick of sleeping through the night without incident? Then grab yourself a copy of The Exorcist's House by Nick Roberts. Insomnia, guaranteed. Nightmares, probably. Checking every room before bed, absolutely. The Exorcist's House, because sleep is overrated.
That does sound fun. So, what other than Jasper Bach, what was your other inspiration books you read? And
Right.
yes, the movies, of course.
I started hardcore at a young age. I think everybody started with Stephen King and Dean Koontz. But then I went to see Nightbreed at the cinema.
Oh, nice.
Which is the film of Cabal, the book by Clive Barker. And I read the book and I was like, wow, who is this guy? My brother-in-law said, oh, here you go. I'm 16, by the way. Here's Books of Blood. And I devoured it. But for me, it was the Yattering and Jack that has always stood out as a story because I love comedy horror. That's why I love Jasper, to be fair. And then I discovered bookshops and I would go in. And then I discovered that all the recommendations, apart from Clive, of course, were coming from straight white men about straight white men. And I was like, haven't you got anybody like me? So Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough was a big influence.
Oh, nice.
Laurel K. Hamilton. Octavia Butler was a big surprise to me because I'd never read anything like this. And that got me into science fiction and fantasy. Unfortunately, so did Juvenile Heinlein. I mean, we've all been there. But that was, again, through film. I would see a film, go into the bookshop, Andromeda Bookshop, I was virtually raised there, and say, have you got anything like? And Roger ran the place, and my Dave, God rest him, who passed away, 9 years ago. That was where I met Dave, as a hopeful little 15-year-old, wildly in love with this big gruff bloke who worked in the bookshop. And we didn't get together till I was in my 40s. Don't worry. But this is an aside, and I have to tell you. I remember when we had our first date, and I said, so why didn't you approach me earlier? He says, I'm not bloody Jimmy Savile. And in the papers the next day came out about Jimmy Savile.
No.
So, but yeah, it was the book. I know, that's terrible. So it was Octavia Butler, Laurel K. Hamilton, Charles Quinn Yarbrough, P.N. Elwood. I love the noir vibes of P.N. Elwood. I Vampire File series. I discovered the Women's Press, which I don't know if anybody remembers that it existed, which brought me to Joanna Russ, the female man. And it brought me to I Vampire. I think it was Jodie Nye, possibly. It's Ulin Nye. I don't remember her name, but I discovered all of these wonderful, diverse writers. And Mark Morris, that was one of my early influences as well. Toady, that book is one that truly creeped me up. And that's when I realised there's more to horror than the monster, because it was the bullying aspect that got to me more than anything as a young teen, and so many British writers, to be honest, because I discovered conventions at about 20
That's
something.
good.
And I remember the first time I met Gary McMahon.
Oh, Gary is awesome.
Me being me, I'm me. I'm not this polite little mouse. I never have been. And I was like, bloody hell, it's Gary McMahon. Can you sign my book? And I handed it over, and he was like, what brings you here? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a writer, as you do when you've got a big head and you sort of what have you. But the thing is, we started talking normally about, he was talking about football, I was talking about films I'd watched, and he dived in. He loves the giallo and the Italian influences and all of that. And I ended up sitting around having pints with Tim Leben, Gary McMahon, Ramsey Campbell, Sarah Pinborough. These, I had no clue these were big names or would be big names. But that's kind of why I've got a big friend list with names that you look and go, holy shit. Because, pardon my French there, I just went and I'd have a pint with them and I'd chat to them and, be me. And that's a key piece of advice that I would give to any writers out there. Be yourself, whether you're a quiet person, if you're on the neurodiverse spectrum, if you are queer like me, it's a bit more difficult. If you are a person of colour, it's a bit more difficult. But you will find your right people. You will find your family out there. And the people who don't want to respect who you are, no matter who they are, stuff them.
Don't waste your time.
Yeah. Don't waste your time.
It's better to be writing. Yes, but that is an impressive group. I mean, but didn't we put you and Gary together in like an anthology?
Yes.
Yes, I remember
Yes,
that.
you did. And I'm honoured to have appeared with a lot of these names later in life. Serious bucket list times. And I've actually published Gary and Jasper.
Nice.
When I was trying to do the chapbooks when they were all in. And it was, it was a big thing, but
I remember that. What year was
that would have been about when I was becoming ill, when I was trying to write God's Vengeance. About 2014, 2015.
I was thinking 13 now, but yes, 14, 15.
Quite some time back.
Sure.
But, for all the ups and downs and the rejections, you're going to get them. Yeah, you're going to get tons. The old cliche about wallpapering your walls. Not that they come through on paper anymore, but yes, you will get them. But the editor that gets you is the one. You will find that you gravitate towards particular presses, you gravitate towards particular editors because they get you and you get them. And that's why me and Joe have worked together since about 2012.
Yep, sure. It's been awesome. I'm so happy we're here, like finally. I really
He's
hope.
the most patient editor publisher known to man. It's 11 years this year because it was 2015 we signed that first contract.
Yes. Yeah, when it comes to work, I've got patience, but I don't know, these days out there, outside these doors, not so much anymore for people in general kind of thing. I don't know, but like, working with people one-on-one, creative people who are passionate and driven and they've got goals and everything. I mean, you can't spend time with better people than
No, it's rewarding. I've done it myself.
yes.
I mean, I know you're working with Blanchard Syndrome at the moment,
Mm,
and I've become really good friends with him. And I've looked at some of these things and gone, yay, and yes, try this. And we talk about writing. We also talk about Eurovision and random stuff. So it's, you know,
that's cool. Yeah,
you get real friends through your mentorship.
I
And I
actually
mean,
got
Joe has
no,
been a
I'm
massive
glad
mentor
to
to
have
me
him. I actually got in a bit of trouble with the HWA because
because
he was
I
assigned to
won't
me
say,
as a mentee, but it's just a 3 month thing. I'm like, how much am I going to get done in 3 months? Like, you can stick
yeah,
around for the year, and so that was a
it's
bit of
only
an
that. But
issue.
if you're not being paid and you're volunteering your time,
Mm,
I mean, you're not setting a standard.
yes,
You're
that's.
not
I think
saying
that's the
every
problem. Like,
HWI mentor.
there's a backlist of people waiting. I can only do. I mean, I've got a lot of students who pay, and now there's a mentorship program, which is great. I could do it for the year, but I can't say yes like every 3 months to a new one. That'll just dilute
Yeah.
it a bit too much. So I'm gonna. He's got us for a year, and I mean, if
And
he
then
wants
you'll
to
probably
stay around,
revert to,
there's the mastermind stuff he can join, that kind of stuff. But
by the way, you mentioned the HWI. Thanks to Bronte, I'm going to be bringing my copies of my books to London on the 10th to the 11th of July. We've
nice.
got our first UK meeting in quite a few years with Bronte organising a lot of it with my help and my friend Jan's help. And it's kind of an informal get together. We'll be doing a couple of spooky things. We'll be going to bookshops. We'll be sitting in the pub. But I'm also doing a kind of soft launch, even though it's a month later, of the
Mm,
book and bringing copies along to sort of see if people are interested. But the main thing is it's worth coming along. You don't have to be a member to come along to that
cool.
meeting, and the details will be on the HWI UK page. But it's good fun, just horror writers and readers getting together
Mm.
to talk books and be nerdy.
I'll put the link in the description as well. Wish I could be there for that.
I
Yes,
know
maybe one
that
day,
would
maybe
be
like
fun.
1 year UK, 1 year America kind of thing. We'll see.
That would be cool.
Yeah, and seeing if I can, like 1 year this, 1 year that. That is the goal because you have to network, and there's only so much. And I've been able to do a lot from all the way down here in South Africa via email, social media. I mean,
Yeah,
we were one of the first companies to like announce on social media, like, I'm going to start a publishing company. I'm going to start a press. And
yeah.
just basically posting on social media before we had a newsletter and any of that stuff. Just a Facebook page. And that's
I
how we
mean, I
started.
suppose I should ask Joe, what on earth possessed you?
A love of. Okay, so I don't want to make this my interview. Uh, Love of writing or creating anything out of nothing. And then I was publishing a bunch of anthologies and magazines and stuff. And oh yes, there was a forum, something horror writers, and we did an anthology of the members, and we
Yeah,
edited each other's stories, and we got a cover
uh,
artist. So we were all involved in the business side of it. And I thought, well, this is even more fun. Like, I'm going to keep doing this. And then
yeah,
I did For the Night is Dark, the anthology. And I had to start a company name for, tax purposes and everything. And then Kevin Lucia and Jasper Bark and Daniel I. Russell, these guys from the anthology said, like, well, I've got a collection. Like, are you interested? And so then we did
yeah.
collections for a few years. And it was only in 2016 that we did our first novel where we really like, now we're a serious company, and I quit my day job, and it's been full steam
Yeah.
ahead ever since. Awesome.
I mean, I've done it myself, but the work is phenomenal. But you've got a whole team now.
It was such a weird social media conversation. I was talking about branding and also our Facebook ads and stuff, and someone commented, "Oh yes, it's so easy when you have a team." And then Nick Roberts, one of our authors, comes and says, "Well, like, we don't always have a team. You start out on your own. He started
Yeah.
out on his own. I started on my own. I did it alone from 2012 until 2021 before I got my first staff member. Now we're like 1, 2, 3, 6 with me, 7. And then
Yeah.
like, third party hire per project type basis. But I mean, for years and years, you do this stuff on your own and it's hard work and it's late nights and early mornings and
Yeah.
headaches and knocking on 100 doors just for 2 to open. But man, if they open, it's magic.
Big
There's
feeling.
so many things you can get done if you just try.
Yeah.
I mean, see what happened just from entering a contest. I mean,
Can't believe it. And it's a bit emotional because it was a hard slog. It's such a very important book in terms of what I talk about in it. And it was very much a part of me. There's a whole scene I talked about with Anita the other day. I didn't say a lot about it, but it talks, there's a mini medical procedure that Ella goes through. And I think when you read it, you can see how much of me went into that. So,
I can
yeah, I mean,
imagine why.
how time flies.
Well, hopefully when the readers go through it, they feel that same kind of experience, like emotional, very deep,
Yeah.
connect with it. I'm sure they will. I mean, if you've got some great characters in there and the premise alone, the setting, everything is awesome. I'm a
Thank
big
you.
fan. So yes, let's talk a bit more about the actual book. So God's
Yes.
Vengeance, what it is about. We know it's young adult after like a kind of pandemic. Yes.
Right. Ella is 16 when it starts, and she receives a letter from Dr. Blanchard, and the letter basically says, rightio, we're in a bit of a situation, so you need to report to the hospital on this date to become part of our repopulation program. And stories had already been going around the neighbourhood about the women that turned up for this. And it was also aimed at a lot of younger people. So with her mum's help, she does a runner. Except she runs and finds this group of people that ultimately lead her in to the trap of being in this program. Because obviously I don't want to spoil that first story arc. And it's about a bunch of kids, some of them as young as 13, up to about 20, who are trapped in this institute together with a set of rules. And it might look, I mean, I tried to give the idea that it was this lovely mansion from the Cotswolds with the juxtaposition that it's a breeding farm. But obviously other secrets are revealed during it, which is where this disease comes from and why have the rules suddenly changed and all of that. So it's very much about people forced to make choices and forced into a situation and how they survive, how they try and keep their identity, how they try and escape. And she builds up this group of friends that, I mean, my Bronte's called it found family. I'm not sure myself because I haven't read it as a reader, so I don't know whether I'd call it that. But we've got some queer couples in there. Jolie is the main trans female character, and it does get grim for her, but I did that on purpose. Honestly, I'm sorry I put you all through it, but I had to sort of make a point and show to the world what some people actually do go through. So it's them forming friendships and bonds, and we see the decline in how the world is going from no more laundry suddenly, then the medication disappears, then the food is slop, and it starts to degrade, which is kind of a reflection of what's happening outside in the world. And that alerts them to the fact, okay, things are getting really bad here. So it's a dystopian thing with kind of right to choose is ultimately one of the key themes of this book.
I actually, I can't remember what it was, a YouTube video or something about how companies and governments and stuff that works, they can't make it more expensive, so and the word is shitify or de-shitify or something.
Yeah,
The product, the medicine, the quality gets worse, like food.
yeah.
And then so they can brag about, like, low prices, and then eventually the prices go up anyway, and you still get the same
Yeah,
crap.
it's insane. The
So that
scary thing is I
is,
predicted a lot because I wrote a pandemic in 2015. I
sure.
wrote about what was happening to women and queer people. Again, that was probably 2019. I reached that point of the narrative, and I was like, okay, I mean, I know I watched that video of a weird guy with yellow hair and an orange skin tone and thought things are getting bad, but feel free to wipe that bit out of the video if you need to. But yeah, I sort of predicted a lot. And I'm like, oh, I'm psychic. Maybe I should get a scarf and a little crystal ball. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
true.
scary old world out there right now.
It's scary in the book as well, but it's a controlled fear. It's a good
Yeah.
escape. So get on it for sure. Well, Teresa, so up next is short stories for now, like maybe one day a novel again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Especially if you
working
have like
on,
the, dictation stuff. Um, I know there's Whisper Flow, I think is one of them. And you can actually, as you speak, correct it and say, "Oh no, I meant 17," and it doesn't type those words. It actually changes the, like,
oh,
16
that's
to
good.
17. So
Thanks
you
for
can actually
that.
correct yourself as you talk. So maybe something like that. So, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
But
definitely going to
yes,
be writing again. I mean, I'm
nice.
still dabbling, but obviously I've
Mm,
got to get through all of this sort of launch and things like that. But I'm
mm,
off to Milford Writing Retreat again in September, bringing whatever
nice.
the new device is with me. And I intend to just sit there instead of doing the feedback sessions.
Mm,
I'll be doing retreat only and hoping to crack out a few words.
nice. That's good. Well, we'll keep an eye on you, you know that, and we'll push this book as hard as it possibly can. Everyone still watching here, you have no excuse now to go and get the book. If you're not interested in it now, like, good grief. So yes, God's Vengeance by Theresa Derwin, a young adult, but I mean, I'm an adult, and that book is moving. It's a not to be missed. Um,
Thank you.
well, I don't even want to say adventure, experience. Yes, it's an experience.
Yeah.
So thank you
Thanks very
for
much, Joe.
coming on the channel, and good luck with your book and whatever comes next. And safe
Thank
travels on
you.
all your journeys. And we'll stay in touch for sure. Thanks,
Oh,
Teresa.
absolutely. Thanks very much, Joe.
Bye.